Howdy, welcome back everyone to another episode of Let's Talk Housing. Just a friendly reminder, my name is Brennan Thomas and I am the co-host here alongside Stephen Thomas, the chief economist and founder of Reports on Housing. Today we will talk about the current housing market numbers and news, how resumption of student debt payment will affect real estate, family-backed home buyers, and what lower rates would mean for the industry, and the great California Exodus. So, Steven, I just want to start. How are you doing today?
I am most excellent. Thank you for asking.
Of course. So, as per usual, can you briefly explain what's happening in the housing market with supply, demand, and expected market time?
Supply looks like, unfortunately, kind of looks like we're reaching a peak. And the reason why I say unfortunately is because I would really like to see the peak. Peaks normally happen between July and the end of August. We're at September 1st, but we crunched the numbers yesterday for August 31st, and it looks like we may have hit that peak right where it should be. I was hoping that this peak would happen later, like September, a little later in September, or even October, because we have so few homes right now. It's setting up too few homes to start off 2024. And that's been a fear of mine for some time. The market right now, as far as inventory is concerned, resembles where we were in 2021. There just weren't enough homes on the market at the end of the year. We peaked and then we started to come down, and it set up a start to 2022 that was at record lows. And unfortunately, it looks like we're going to try to compete with 2022 as far as record lows of number of homes on the market. But if we can slow down the inventory falling, and maybe it doesn't fall as fast as it did in 2021, we might be okay. So that's something else for me to look to root for. But the trend of not enough homes coming on the market continues. I'm actually looking at the numbers right now for August. We'll finish that later on today. But everything looks like it's just going to be, again, for the last year, not enough homeowners coming on the market. Now, on the demand side, we've all seen what happened to interest rates. And I did a YouTube video on that we dropped yesterday, our housing debrief. And it really goes into how the market slowed a bit in August. It slowed more than it typically does in August. And the reason for that slowdown was we saw interest rates rise considerably, and they reached an all-time high that we have not seen since November of 2000. So, but since then, actually rates have come back down. So what happened is we've seen this drop in demand because of the interest rates being so high, as well as, but inventory still didn't go up as much as I would have liked to have seen. So like I said, we're seeing that in the inventory, but demand really came down quite a bit. But over this past week, we've watched interest rates come back down to earth, more towards 7%. And all it's going to take are a couple more economic articles to come out or economic charts and releases that will illustrate what we're kind of seeing. And that's this real slow progression of the economy slowing down. It's just not happening as fast as everybody like to see, but it's definitely happening.
What were we able to see in this week's economic data, and were they promising results?
Yeah, so this is like jobs week. This is a great, fun week for anybody that's tied to analytics like we are. But we're talking jobs, but of course, looking at jobs also bleeds into what's going to happen with housing. Of course, if we have too robust of an economy, that will translate to higher mortgage rates. As soon as the economy cools a little bit, that's where we see lower rates. We know that lower rates are coming, and you can actually see it in the numbers. So we had job openings that came down a lot more than what they were originally anticipated. We're right now at March 2021 levels for where it came down to. It's still too hot. We're at 8.8 million, but we were at, like practically 12 million back in the day. So we're slowly but surely, you see that the progression is that it's coming down. Now I know the Fed wants something in the sevens. They want a 7 handle, so we need to get below 8 million. And that's most likely going to come. You just have to be patient. So that was job openings, and then ADP did their payroll report, but I don't really care that much about ADP. It was actually less than expectations. And then the jobs report came out today. It was just a tiny bit higher, but they revised. The most important thing is they revised the last 2 months, June and July, down aggressively down lower. And now you can actually see, if you go back a year as far as number of jobs created, there is a trend line, and that trend line is definitely down. So it's exactly what I said. Everybody like freaks out over this report or that report or this or that, and everybody freaked out about January jobs report in February. But you just got to look at the long-term trends, and the long-term trends show you that it's down, and it's going to continue to go down. And unemployment had a surprise. It popped and went to 3.8%. We were at 3.5% last month. So unemployment grew a bit, and that's because the number of jobs created was revised down, unemployment up as they get better numbers. And that's a lot more accurate now of an unemployment figure. So it was at 3.5, that jumped to 3.8. Just shows you that it's moving in the right direction. 3.8 is still really strong, but it's making its way towards 4%. And these are more things that the Fed wants to see. And that's because what we're seeing is that the labor market is just too strong. There's a supply issue. There's not enough unemployed. There's not enough people looking for work. One of the biggest things is we used to create a lot of jobs in the United States, and we still do. We have 4 million people that are added to the workforce every year. Back 10 years ago, we would have 2 million people that would retire. Now we're at 4 million that are retiring, 4 million entering the workforce. So net zero. So we're not adding anybody to the workforce, which is why the labor is still really tight. So, but if we have less job creation and quits were down as well, which is something that the Fed and everybody else wants to see. And that just means that we're going to get this overall cooling of labor. And you could tell that the labor was robust because we have all these different strikes that have been going on. You had UPS almost go on a strike. You have the Hollywood strike that's going on. There's the automobile workers are all going to go on strike against all of the United States automobile companies, and they can only go on for like 90 days. Most likely, it's going to be resolved in 30 days. But yet. There's a lot of talk of labor striking so that they're trying to take advantage of this window of opportunity of when employment's great, but it's going to go away soon. So they're taking advantage of it right now.
So it's well known that student debt payments are going to resume as well as accruing interest. So actually starting today, in fact, September 1st, how can this help our economy?
Yeah, so they made this announcement that they're going to be doing this. Everybody, I think, for most college debt, that they're going to start paying it in October, if I'm correct. So you know that all the bills went out, so everybody has their bills. Now they see these bills, they know that they're coming. That's going to feed into less consumer spending. Not a whole heck of a lot less consumer spending, but another thing that we've seen is consumer spending has been really robust, really strong, and this just adds to the inflation story. When you have way too much spending, they can get away with pricing it a lot higher. But instead, with inflation, when you have consumer spending coming down a little bit, soften it a bit, that will help out inflation. So just one more way that inflation will be kept in check. So that's why it's actually overall good for the economy in the present circumstances that we are right now.
And then how can the student debt repayment resumption negatively reflect in the real estate industry or in the economy?
Yeah, you're not really going to see. I already talked about how you're going to see it in the economy as far as consumer spending is concerned. But what we're not going to see it is that much in real estate. You're not going to see a tangible difference in demand or anything like that. There might be some people that might not because they don't qualify. But right now we don't have that problem of not enough buyers in the marketplace. It's hard to imagine that we have plenty of buyers in the marketplace, but we have plenty of buyers in the marketplace for the number of homes that are on the market, because we have way fewer homes coming on the market that are eaten up really quick. So you don't need that much buyer demand to eat up the current number of homes that are coming on the market on a monthly basis. So, and you have to understand, the people that are most in a pickle as far as being able to purchase a home, first-time home buyers or anybody else that has student debt, it's pretty much the college dropouts. If you look at all of the different figures, and if anybody that's really having a problem or is living, paycheck to paycheck, those are the people that were the college dropouts. When you look at them, those are the people that are struggling the most. Everybody else with student debt, they're not struggling as much because they actually graduated and they have jobs that are paying well. So, and what I just described with the people that came out of, that dropped out of college, those are typically the people that are not going to be the first-time home buyers, because they're living paycheck to paycheck and haven't accumulated any kind of a down payment. So you're not going to really see a tangible difference in the housing market. Nobody's going to be able to put their finger on, oh, I can see that this is definitely affecting things. You're just not going to see it in housing.
So I was taking a look around some articles, and according to a study done by Redfin, 38% of more than 500 buyers under the age of 30 either used a cash gift from a family member or an inheritance to afford their down payment. What does this reflect on the current state of real estate?
Housing's expensive. It's hard to have put a down payment or pay points or that type of thing. So 38% of first-time home buyers, you have to understand we're dealing with a much, much smaller buyer pool. So there's not as many buyers in the marketplace. So cash is a bigger piece of it. And then the people that are able to afford and are able to do things, those are the people that are able to pay points and put a bigger, larger down payment, so they get the payment to the monthly payment to a certain level where they're able to make that monthly payment. So it's going to take some help for a lot of people to get there. And fortunately, you have a lot of baby boomers, you have parents, you have grandparents, you have uncles, aunts, and a lot of different people are helping out in this equation. And this is across the board. I've heard it from lenders when they look at how things are working out. There's a lot of help. And this is only going to increase, because baby boomers, it's like the people that used to say there's going to be this silver tsunami where so many people are all with white hair like myself are going to be selling their homes and selling off into the sunset and living in convalescent homes. Well, that was a narrative that people told themselves and people listened to and talked about. But it's one of those narratives, of course, like so many in real estate, that never played out. There's instead people like to age in place, stay in their home. But come to 2030, you will see that there will be more people that will have to do that. But it's not going to be this tsunami. It's going to be this dial where people just naturally are going to get older and go to convalescent homes, and there will be people that will die. I don't know what's a better way of putting it, but these people there will be inheritance, and that inheritance will trickle down into real estate as well. That will help out in more down payments and more assistance and more things like that. But prior to people leaving this earth and meeting God, before that, what they would, they like to help out their family while they're still alive. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing parents and grandparents and people help out. So we're seeing a lot of assistance there, and that will continue. And I think that that's only going to grow.
With so many people being outpriced in terms of affordable payments, can you explain how waiting till mortgage rates drop, how it can be detrimental to housing affordability and housing prices?
Yeah, it's like this catch-22. You don't want to purchase because interest rates are so high. So that's where I say just get into real estate. Do whatever you can. Buy a duplex. If you buy a duplex to get in, you're a first-time home buyer, you're not just buying you're buying two places, right? But you get to live in one of them. The other one, it's not double the amount. It's not twice as expensive to get a duplex as it is if you're looking at comparable homes to live in. It's between 1.4 and 1.6 times, but you're going to get a rent from the other unit, and that rent offsets it, so it actually helps out in your monthly payment. So it's one way to bridge the gap. So looking at duplexes is one of the ways to do it. Just get into real estate by buying a studio, even buying a small place that you don't live in and you continue to like the place that you rent at, but you own a small like little studio apartment that you're getting rent on, because down the road you'll watch the values go up, because what's going to happen is interest rates will eventually come down, like what you're talking about. But what's going to happen is we're already seeing values that are going up right now in this high interest rate environment where they're right at about 7% right now. Now, as rates come down, what's going to happen to demand? Demand is only going to increase. Numbers of homes will eventually increase as well, but it won't the number of new buyers in the marketplace will outpace the number of homes that are coming on, so that now we're dealing with even more buyers, more offers per house, and we're already dealing with multiple offers in the more affordable ranges. And when I say more affordable ranges, it's the 90% of the market, the bottom 90%. We look at luxuries at the top 10%, but in all the markets that we look at, pretty much anything that's in that 90%, that's pretty darned hot. And for like areas like along the coast here in LA, Orange County, and San Diego, that's $750,000 to $1 million is just scorching hot. And they just fly off the market if they're detached homes. So what's going to happen is you're going to have more demand. So if you have more demand and more multiple offers, values are only going to continue to go up, and you're competing against more people. So you're going to have to pack your patience. You're going to have to write you might have today might have to write like 6 or 7 offers to get a house. Maybe down the road when there's more buyers and more competition, now you got to write 10, 15 offers like it was during COVID. And that's the direction, unfortunately, that we're going to go into. So the longer you wait, the more values are going up. So waiting doesn't necessarily help out much. Now, if you were to get an interest rate right now today at 7% and interest rates come all the way down to 6%, well, guess what you get to do? You get to refinance. And you can refinance as many times as you want. So if you're able to afford the payment today at 7% and then down the road interest rates go down to 6%, guess what? You get a pay raise. Your payment's going to go down because you're going to refinance. And then eventually if interest rates, because right now the 10-year treasury and the 30-year mortgage, there's a spread. The natural spread is about 1.71 going back to 1971. And right now it's like, the spread is over 3. So really our interest rates today should be right under 6%. So when that spread, which will come down down the road when there's a lot more clearer path as to where the economy is going and where inflation is, that spread is going to come down. We might get interest rates at 5% down the road. And when is that going to happen? I don't know, but let's call it 2025. Then you can refinance yet again another time, because you can refinance as many times as you want. So you get another pay raise down the road. So you got to keep this in mind going forward. Is it guaranteed that we'll have interest rates coming down? No. So that's why I say you got to love the payment that you're in right now, because down the road, if you have interest rates that go up to 8% and you're at 7% right now, you're locked in at 7%. It doesn't change. You don't refinance to a higher rate. It's fixed for as long as you have that loan for 30 years and it's paid off. So it's good to get in, it's good to stay, and it's a hedge against just about everything. It's a hedge against inflation. There's so many good rational reasons of purchasing.
Now, housing continues to be unaffordable, no supply. A bill called the More Homes on the Market Act was introduced. This would provide $500,000 for single filers and $1 million for joint filers in tax exclusion. Could this truly benefit the housing market?
I hope enough people, because what everybody gets trapped in is helping out the people that can't afford to purchase a home. But that's not the side of the equation that we need to be working on right now. That's the wrong side of the equation. That's the buying side of the equation. We don't have a problem with demand. Demand's already strong. If you make it easier for people to qualify and there's down payment assistance, which makes sense in a normal market. But in this market, what it does is it adds more offers, more buyers to the buyer pool. And we don't need that because we already have it. Because for those people, they're looking at the entry level, and the entry level of just about every market is off its hinges right now. It's so robust that that the chances of them being able to purchase it diminishes, especially if you add more buyers. Let's work on this on the other side, the supply side. And that's exactly what this addresses. This is Unfortunately, and unfortunately, we have this capital gains exclusion. Everybody that owns real estate has this capital gains exclusion as long as they live in their residence at home for 2 of the past 5 years. If you're a single person, you get up to $250,000 gain that you just get to write off. So if your home went up $250,000 in value, you have to pay no taxes on it after you get this net proceeds check after paying off everything, and you get this check for $250,000, you get to keep all of it. Now, for a couple, it's actually double it. It's $500,000. Now, and so then if your home went up $500,000, you get it, and you get a $500,000 net proceeds check, you pay nothing. If you got one for $1 million because you've been in your home for a long time, and there are plenty of people that purchased their home way back in the day for $500,000, let's say, and now their home is worth $1.5 million. And it's $1 million that they have. Well, they have that exclusion of $500,000. Now they have to pay taxes on the other $500,000. Well, this is so old. You have to understand that this is older than most millennials. This has been around for such a long time that is when prices were a lot less, so it pretty much covered everybody. Now it doesn't cover as many people, so it's one more thing that's keeping homeowners inside of their houses, is because they don't want to pay capital gains. So you understand that analogy of going from 500 to 1.5 million, they have $1 million worth of gain. They subtract out the 500,000 because they have that $500,000 couples exclusion, capital gains. The other 500,000 they're taxed on. $500,000 taxation it's huge. They don't want to pay like $100,000 in taxes on that. So they're just staying put in their house. And that's one more thing that's keeping people from placing their homes on the market. And it's definitely, this will free up a few more people that maybe weren't looking at doing it because of the capital gains exclusion. Now you got them able to actually place their homes on the market and exclude $1 million in capital gains. And this is just for people that live in their homes for 2 out of the last 5 years. So this is not there for investors. This is there for homeowners, people that actually called the dwelling that they lived in home, and those are the people that are able to take advantage of it. So I think it's a great policy that they need to look at, because it's so old that it needs to be revised to today's standards.
Now, I've also been seeing a handful of articles highlighting firms and businesses worth nearly $1 trillion leaving California and New York to places like Florida and Texas for tax reasons, as you can imagine. What could this in turn mean for California's overall economy, or even New York's as well?
Well, overall, it's not going to really affect the economy as much as the narrative that's being played out by so many people. And that narrative is not something that I subscribe to, because there's plenty of what California is also known as is just a melting pot of small businesses and a lot of genius little businesses. And then you get to live in the state of California, which has such mild weather. That's what attracts so many people to California. The number one reason why people are moving is because of, people could say that they're moving for property tax purposes, but they've actually moved all over the country. And the number one reason that people are moving is just how expensive it is to live in California. It is expensive to live here for a variety of different reasons. The number one, of course, being shelter. Shelter is extremely expensive. Even if you don't own things, if you rent something, it's so expensive that when you go someplace else, they are like flabbergasted at how much everybody pays for rent here. Same thing goes for New York. New York has the same thing. So it's just one of those expensive states to live in. California is practically the most expensive state to live in. So what that does is it pushes people out. But overall, businesses are robust. You'll get the headlines of all the big businesses that are leaving. But you know what? At the end of the day, Californians are very ingenious, as well as there are plenty of small businesses that are just wonderful businesses to start, and that's what we are. California is just a melting pot of it. We're made up of a lot. We already had this mass exodus of military back in I believe it was the 90s, where they were shutting down Marine bases. All these engineering companies left California. It was supposed to be the end of the world as we knew it for California. Guess what? It wasn't the end of the world for California because people still want to live in California, even though it's very expensive to do so.
Now, I know you talked about all the small businesses, but would you say that the large firms exiting California or New York could potentially affect the housing industry in those states or even housing prices at all?
Well, in those states, you're mentioning states that have a lot of building that's going on, so they're actually doing a lot more building. And one of the reasons why some of these big firms is moving there is because of affordability to live there for all their employees, and so that's why you're getting a bit of a exodus out to these states. Which what that does is that actually creates more buyer demand, which creates prices and values that go up. And if you go to the state of Texas, they actually have you buy and you get a 30-year fixed rate. The problem is we have something called Prop 13 in California. Prop 13 holds your taxes and it can only go up 2% per year. That's it. Now, the difference for the like Texas is you have your 30-year fixed mortgage, but property taxes aren't fixed. So what they're experiencing in Texas right now is all this flock of buyers that have come from California to Texas, and they've helped drive up home prices to a point where now all the people that have owned homes in there may have fixed payments for everything but property taxes, and their property tax bills are skyrocketing in Texas. So that's one of the beauties of actually being in the state of California is your taxes don't change that much. So your month, you know what your monthly amount is. It does not change that much.
Could the More Homes on the Market Act potentially stop homeowners from moving out of state if there's better housing market conditions?
Yeah, I can definitely see that that if there are better housing conditions, then yes, people are able to move around a little bit more and stay here in the state of California. Right now, it's the people that are cashing out and leaving because they want to cash out. Now, if more favorable, if we have better mortgage rates, better where they're lower, and because everybody here in the state of California, across the United States, California even more so, has more people below 5%. It's like 89% of everybody has an interest rate of 5% or less, and as 30% actually have an interest rate at 3% or less. That precludes people from placing their homes on the market. But if interest rates get down low enough, and you fix this property, the capital gains exclusions all the way up to $1 million, it's going to allow some more people to actually say, hey, you want to know, I want to move within the state of California. I just couldn't before because I had this tax bill that I was going to have to pay if I sold my house, but now I don't no longer have it. So it could actually create a little bit more of staying here right in California of the homeowner that would not have moved before. And so once again, working on the right side of the equation and adding more people that are able to move within the state.
Now, I just want to transition over to a comment we received on our last video, and they said if the U.S. economy is so strong, why are so many economic indicators are below 50 or contracting? So my question to you, Stephen, is this true? And what are the economic indicators truly saying?
Yeah, you look at different economic indicators like leading economic indicators, the inverted yield curve. There are those kind of indicators that are flashing red. We have a whole bunch of we have as far as recession indicators, we have a number that we track. Some of the things is once typically when the Fed changes interest rates as much as they have, that it causes a recession. That's one of the indicators we follow. When unemployment drives down to a low amount, that's another indicator that we hit, because it means that the overall economy is just heating up so much that they're going to want to slow things down a bit, and it typically causes a recession. Yet they've done a lot to slow things down. It hasn't. One of the different equations that we don't have from the past that's different, I already explained in this podcast, and that is that we do not have a job force that's growing. We have 4 million coming, 4 million leaving and retiring. That's net zero. Before we had 4 million coming, 2 million leaving, that you added 2 million. So it could cause different things to happen with the labor market. Right now, labor market, way too robust. And that is the number one thing that is driving a lot of this, because if you have too robust of a labor market, and you have payrolls on the rise, what that allows people to do is spend money, and that's what's happening, which is what gets the economic gears going. That's the most important aspect of what's going on within our economy. There are headwinds that are coming, but they haven't hit the United States economy yet. They're slowly, you're seeing it in everything where it's slowly slowing, but its economics is slow and boring. We know that. So down the road, we will see it, but it's not going to be this giant exodus, this giant turn, this giant mega recession that so many people are talking about. Even if we had a recession, it'd be so mild, but it wouldn't affect labor that much. We wouldn't get it's nothing like the Great Recession that so many people are talking about. What do these perma bears call it? It's the bubble of all bubbles. It's all these bubbles that are combined that are supposed to explode and implode. I'm serious. There's all these negative narratives that have been around for so long. Rarely do they come to fruition. Rarely. And this is one of those cases where when you hear it all the noise, you're going, back that up, buddy. Go ahead, back it up and show me all the data and stats that you're referring to. Most importantly, our homeowners are very, very solid. They are very, very healthy, the healthiest of all time. And that comes from Dodd-Frank. So we have people that have qualified for their houses for a long time. So we're not going to get that many foreclosures or short sales. Yes, there might be people that are a little distressed, but it's not like before. We used to stick people in homes. They'd have adjustable rate mortgages. Nobody has an adjustable rate mortgage anymore. And if they do, it's just fixed for 5 or 7 years. But for the lion's share, everybody has fixed rate mortgages. Used to have these adjustable rate mortgages. They couldn't afford their homes. We didn't do as good of a job of qualifying people, so lending wasn't as tight. So what ended up happening is these people would get hurt and they'd have to place their homes on the market, and they were easily absorbed. It would add to the number of homes coming on the market. But over time, we see fewer and fewer homes coming on the market because Dodd-Frank fixed it. We actually have a very, very healthy housing stock. That's very important because this healthy housing stock are consumers, and they can consume and keep our economy robust, and they're in good jobs and they have good credit scores. So there's just so many factors that are going to keep this thing from the wheels coming off. I just don't see where it's going to come from. So go ahead, point it out. Let me know where it's going to come from. It's definitely not coming from real estate. We've already proved that. We have interest rates that are to the sky, to the moon and back practically. It's way up here. And yet it hasn't derailed the housing market since the very first month of this year, after coming down a little bit, after we adjusted from going from 3.25% to 7.25% interest rates in 1 year, actually higher than that. We've had interest rates that have come down, and we had values that came down, but now values have been going up since the start of this year. And the housing market is strong. It's going to remain strong. It's not going anywhere. It has to be an exogenous shock, which means an outside force shock. One of those examples of an exogenous shock is COVID. Who saw COVID coming? It's got to come outside of real estate to affect it. But even COVID, it actually positively impacted the housing market, as we now know, looking back in history. So I just don't know where this is going to come from. So go ahead and show me what part of the economy is going to bring down the economy, A, B, where it's severe, and B, how it's going to affect housing. I just don't see it.
Well, I'm going to have to conclude today's episode, but thank you everyone again for tuning into another episode of Let's Talk Housing. Now, if you want to learn more about what is going on in the real estate industry across Southern California or the Bay Area, feel free to check out our YouTube or subscribe to us at reportsonhousing.com. If you sign up today, we will give you the 1 month free if you use the code Exodus. Please leave a good review, and if you have any questions, feel free to post it to our social media, or you can give me an email at info@reportsonhousing.com. We will see you soon, and have a great rest of your day.